I've got the Greens up there because the Greens are hosting, but we are a non-political group. We came together as a community and we talk to all communities, and that's, we just want to say thank you to the Greens for hosting today. Here are some numbers. We were formed in 2022. There are 22 community groups that we're part of. That means 22 community groups which already have hundreds and thousands of people are actually part of the Natural Turf Alliance. We are all volunteers, there's no payments. We've been through 2 court cases, that was West Pymble and Banksia, which is where I was from, and there's a new case coming up in Castle Hill. Synthetic fields in New South Wales, we only know about the 200 that were mentioned in the Chief Scientist report. The number 4 is the number of fields that we have stopped from becoming synthetic because they saw the benefits of natural turf. Those 4 fields are at Middlehead, which is Mossman, Greenwich, West Pymble, although that's still a bit iffy at the moment, and at Gladesville. And some of the reasons why they didn't go with synthetic is because of the cost of the area, whether it was flooding, whether it was just too expensive. So there are many reasons why natural turf is the better alternative. 200 plus, obviously, the number of fields that are around. 18 is a number of families that moved away when Banksia, Gardner Park where I'm from, 18 families have moved away in the last 2 years since the synthetic turf was installed. And there's many reasons why. It's an increase of use, it's increase of noise. It was an unsuitable field, but 18 families have chosen to move rather than stay next to a synthetic field. There is a huge cost to the community when this happens, and I'll go through some of those as well. So the other question mark on there is how many schools, education facilities, preschools, daycare centres have plastic turf? That's another question that's come up with us. We started off with local parks, and now we're actually looking at schools and play centres as well. And that's a real question mark because we keep seeing a lot of it around. Our current campaigns are around 2. We've got one at Callan Park, which is the inner west. They're trying to put a synthetic turf field next to the water, where they've also decided to have an outdoor swimming pool as well. And Fred Caddison at Castle Hill, they want to keep the bushland and the old Pony Club site. And yeah, there's an increase of usage there as well. But look, we advocate for this based upon scientific evidence. And when we were going through the court case, the judge said, you know, you're not experts at all, and we felt very admonished. So we turned around, and it was Greta Werner, who was one of our on our team, and she said, you should just call the universities. And I can't tell you how helpful all of our experts have been. They have given so much time to us. We have almost an advisory board of plastics and environment, etc. So scientists have been so helpful to all of us. Okay, but there's been such an impact on residents when a field comes across, and that's why there's 22 community groups who are all telling us their stories. But why do these synthetic fields go ahead? Well, councils are using an austerity budget and they're not looking after their fields, and we recognise that. We recognise there are dirt patches, there's bad drainage, and if they actually put the proper money into it, and I'm sure, and Mick Badham, our soil scientist, he'll tell you about how you can improve all of that. But then you've got this government grant that comes along and they say, well, here's $2 million to put in a synthetic field, so they just drop the idea of increasing the natural turf field. So we're fighting against a grant when in fact we know they didn't have the budget to start with. We're also up against sporting groups who are very organised. They've got their mailing lists. They actually, they can say we've lost all these matches. But the communities who use those parks when the sporting fields are not there, they are also very important. Whether we're the dog walkers, whether we're the parents or the grandparents taking our kids up. But there's lots of things that do happen to parks when the sporting groups aren't there. And when you install synthetic turf, everybody else is pushed away. You won't have AFL, you won't have touch football, you won't have bulls, you won't have kites and frisbees. Everything disappears when you put up a fence and you put on a synthetic turf field. Now, I can say this with authority because when we lost the court case and they put in the synthetic at Gardner Park, we were there living with synthetic and seeing exactly the changes. We weren't able to use our park anymore. That's a space that we could all use. After work, after school, we lost our park, and that is not fair. It's a community space. Now, people were actually starting to distrust natural turf, which is where we actually called Dr. Mick Badham, one of our soil scientists, and he just told us we can do all sorts of things with natural turf, so I'll let him explain all of that. But synthetic is seen as a magical solution, so we have to look into that. What actually is synthetic doing to us? But community consultation is our strength, and what I love is that people just come out of nowhere and they will tell you what's actually going on. Thank you. So the arguments for is that they want more playing time. We understand that because it gets damaged by overuse. The council's not looking after the parks, and of course wet weather. So these are things that are always going to happen, but we just want to improve that soil. Again, I'll leave that a conversation to Mick and all the soil. The arguments against synthetic turf, there is a financial, a social and an environmental issue. Financially, these are very expensive fields. If you give $2 million to one soccer team, you've probably got 9 others in the LGA who'd also want $2 million. So suddenly you've got every soccer club or hockey club or anybody else wanting the same amount of money spent on them. Socially, I've already said how we've actually destroyed our communities because we're not using our local parks for everybody. And environmentally, we've started to hear about all of the heat and the plastics as well. What also came through in the Chief Scientist report was that synthetic turf fields are highly flammable. Now, we don't have any standards for the testing, so the manufacturers have been testing the fields as an indoor carpet, when instead they should be testing them as an outdoor building product. When it's an outdoor product, I'll take questions afterwards. When it's an outdoor product, it's then reduced to wind and fire and other embers. Then synthetic turf, the ones that were tested by the scientists in the report, said they were highly flammable. And I've actually got some slides. I've got little videos just after this as well. Obviously the pollution and of course the single use, so that's a loss to other people. So these are the arguments against having synthetic turf. So recycling, there's been a lot of talk about that. The picture on the far side is Northbridge Oval. Now Northbridge Oval, that's the topping up of the rubber crumb that we've just heard of. So they are 1,000-kilo bags, and that's what you top up the field with. So they've obviously lost all that crumb, and then they have to keep topping it up. The middle photo is Cromer. So Cromer Park, they wanted the rolled up field, which had been taken off, which is on this side. That was actually sitting there for 18 months and it was disintegrating next to the field. Apparently they wanted the rolls of turf to actually go off to the Netherlands, which was the supposed recycling centre. The recycling centre in the Netherlands got shut down because it was using Russian gas and the Ukraine war stopped that. But in fact, they opened up another one called Reform, which is near Albury-Wodonga. So a synthetic turf company has actually opened Reform. We know that those fields were one of the first to go down to Albury-Wodonga. We're not sure exactly how much it costs to ship all of that down to Albury-Wodonga. We're not sure what the product is at the end of that. We know they shake out the sand and they clean that and they shake out the rubber crumb and that. We're not sure what they do with the actual turf. We think they give it away to agriculture and they use it on the bottom of sheds and stables. So yeah, all weather, it's not. That's the thing I can say to you. Everybody knows it's hot in summer. There was an article in the Herald this week about artificial turf in Chatswood Concourse, and all of the comments were saying, we know it's hot, we know it's hot, we know it's hot. So I think we're all understanding now that synthetic turf does get very hot. So we've also relied upon documents. Now these documents have been created since we started the Natural Turf Alliance. Again, we'd like to thank Rob Stokes for putting together the first of them, which is the Urban Ethos report. That one was the very first report that came out and said, yes, I think we need to do a scientific report. The scientific report is the Chief Scientist one, and this one has all the appendices from the scientists, which includes all of the microplastics, the pollutions, and about 18 different topics. Then we've got the middle one, which is the best practice guidelines for supporting fields. That's Mix one. And then just the 2 that came out recently, because we've been asking for some guidelines. We want councils to have a checkbox to say this is a heritage park, or this has got a flooding zone, or this is, next to, it doesn't have the car parking for intense use. So the guidelines have come out. There's an addendum in there which also covers schools, which we're pleased about. So these are the 5 documents that we rely upon to get our information from. So Look, the Natural Turf Alliance is there. If you want to call us, you want to send us an email, we actually like to have a chat with you. We can actually help you through all sorts of question marks that you might have, because I'm probably not going to cover everything that you're thinking about, so I'm very happy to take those phone calls. Next one. So what we're now seeing, because synthetic turf has been around for 10 years or so, we're starting to see how it fails. Because it looks great at the beginning, but how are these failing? They're failing in different ways. When synthetic turf, when it's wet, the rubber crumb sticks to your hands. It's pretty simple. That's another way that we get lost. The big picture in the middle is Mitchelton Oval in Brisbane. That's next to a creek. So during the Brisbane floods, the whole, everything underneath it just got lifted up and went away. Next to this synthetic field is a grass field, and that was back up and playing within a week. So there was no cost when, apart from just moving the debris, but there is a synthetic turf field next to a creek. So obviously the checkbox for flooding wasn't actually ticked. Okay, this is Chatswood High School. In January earlier this year, this field was starting to fall apart. We were seeing all these posts from parents saying, I've got all this crumb and rubber on my kids' cleats, how do I get it off? And they were sharing tips about hairdryers, spanners, how do I get the cleats off? The glue was actually coming apart. It was sticking in kids' cleats, and so they've actually had to rip that up again. Okay, this is Corkfield at Tempe. Again, this is in 2022. It's been in place for about 2 years. So after the rain, this is how the cork moves in the field. So that cork moves, and it moves across the field, it moves into the drains, it moves into the car park. Then it has to be rotated back in again. Now, can you play that in the rain? This is one of the arguments, it's all weather. So that's cork. I think there's one more. This is West Pymble. So this one's, the construction has actually stopped because, again, the flooding wasn't actually adhered to. The hydrology reports were very old. So this one's gone through a court case. We start off at about 3 million, and this is now up to about 13 million. So this is one soccer field that's costing 13 million, and they still haven't finished it. It's now gravel. The creek that's below this goes into the Lane Cove River, and every time they kept trying to move it, they just flooded the creek with all of the soil and the debris. So mitigation, flood zones, rain, debris. This is the problem with synthetic turf fields, is there's so much movement of the soil, so much drainage they're trying to put in. They're not easy fields to build, and we're starting to see the failures which cost the community and the ratepayers, when in fact natural turf doesn't have nearly as many problems. So as I said, Natural Turf Alliance is a bunch of people. We're happy to take phone calls, we're happy for information, and we do rely upon our experts. But this is our citizen science part, where we actually just find out what's been going on with synthetic turf fields. Thank you so much.